Imagine waking up one day to discover that everything you believed about respect, loyalty, and human decency was an illusion carefully propped up by society to keep you tame. You look into the mirror and realize, people do not admire you because you are good. They do not follow you because you are fair. They follow strength, they obey fear, and they reserve their deepest respect not for kindness, but for the one who can stand apart, untouchable, unmoved, immune to their judgments. The paradox confronts you like a blade pressed against your throat. You have been told your entire life to be agreeable, to seek approval, to win affection. Yet the more you strive to please others, the less they value you. The more you bend, the more invisible you become. Why does this happen? Why do people turn away from the gentle and bow before the ruthless? Machiavelli saw it with brutal clarity centuries ago. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. A phrase so sharp it cuts through the soft fabric of every comforting lie we tell ourselves about human nature. But ask yourself, what does this really mean? Is it merely about cruelty and domination, or is there something deeper, more unsettling, a rule of existence that determines who rises and who remains chained? Imagine two men standing in the same square. One is generous, polite, eager to please. He smiles, he nods, he sacrifices for others. The second man carries himself differently. He does not beg for recognition, does not bow to opinion, and does not reveal his vulnerabilities. He radiates an air of distance, of strength, even of danger. Which one is remembered? Which one commands silence when he enters the room, and which one vanishes into the background of forgettable faces? The contradiction gnaws at you. You want love, yet you crave respect. You want connection, yet you despise being overlooked. How can one reconcile these forces? Is it truly impossible to be both deeply admired and warmly loved? Or is Machiavelli's insight pointing us to a hidden truth about human psychology, that love is fickle, fragile, conditional, but fear commands permanence? Think about the people you respect most. Is it because they were endlessly kind, endlessly yielding, or was it because they carried an edge, an aura of being untouchable, of not needing your approval in the first place? Do we not, in some secret chamber of the heart, admire those who dare to be uncompromising, those who refuse to kneel to the court of opinion? And yet here lies the unsettling paradox. To live in fear of others is weakness, but to inspire fear in others is strength. Which side of the blade do you stand on? Consider history's figures: Caesar, Napoleon, Churchill, even the philosophers who dared to speak against their times. They were loved, yes, sometimes, but always, beneath the admiration, was a thread of awe, even dread. They seemed untouchable. Their authority was not granted, it was taken, and the world respected them not for their concessions, but for their refusal to bow. So where does this leave you? How do you stand in a society that demands obedience yet secretly despises the obedient? How do you win the kind of respect that cannot be stripped away by gossip, betrayal, or shifting tides of opinion? Imagine your daily life. The colleague who mocks you quietly because you never speak up. The friend who only calls when they need something. The partner who begins to take your kindness for granted. You tell yourself patience is virtue, that love conquers all, but deep down, a quiet anger grows. A voice whispers, they do not respect you because you have made yourself too available, too malleable, too easily touched. And so the great question stands before you like a stone wall you can no longer walk around. What is the rule that makes a person untouchable? What hidden law governs this strange alchemy where respect flows not to the kindest, but to the strongest? And what must you become to command it? This is not a call to cruelty. It is not a celebration of tyranny. It is something far more dangerous, the realization that human beings respect distance, power, and fearlessness more than they respect comfort, love, or compromise. But if you accept this truth, if you dare to stare into the abyss of Machiavelli, dark insights, then a terrifying but liberating possibility emerges. Perhaps you do not need their love to be respected. Perhaps you need something else entirely. And here, standing on the threshold of this realization, one question refuses to leave you. If you knew the rule that makes you untouchable, would you have the courage to live by it, even if it meant giving up everything you thought you knew about being loved? Respect feels like oxygen. You don't notice its absence until you are suffocating. And yet, many live their entire lives starved of it, not because they are incapable, but because they misunderstand what commands it. The hidden problem is not that people don't care about you. The problem is that they care about themselves. More, they see the world through the lens of their needs, their fears, their insecurities. And when they look at you, they do not ask, is this person kind? They ask, does this person pose a threat? Does this person command strength? Does this person have something I cannot ignore? Machiavelli knew this truth intimately. Living in the treacherous courts of Renaissance Italy, he witnessed how rulers lost kingdoms not because they were hated, but because they were weak. He wrote, "Men have less hesitation in offending one who makes himself loved than one who makes himself feared." To modern ears, it sounds ruthless, but underneath lies a psychological principle. Humans are more loyal to strength than to affection. Carl Jung approached this from another angle. He saw the shadow, the dark, unacknowledged part of the psyche, the source of one's real power. When you repress your shadow, when you cling only to the persona of being agreeable, polite, endlessly giving, you castrate yourself of the very qualities that would make you respected. Jung warned, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. This is the hidden root. Society trains you to seek approval, to hide the parts of yourself that feel threatening, to water down your power into something digestible. But in doing so, you become forgettable, disposable, a background character in other people's stories. Think about Nietzsche's critique of slave morality. He argued that societies built on obedience glorify meekness, humility, and self-sacrifice not because they are inherently good, but because they keep the masses controlled. Meanwhile, the virtues of strength, courage, independence, the will to power, are condemned because they threaten the system. Yet Nietzsche insists, only by embracing your will to power do you become fully alive, truly respected. So here you are caught in a trap. From childhood you are told to share your toys, to sit quietly, to be polite, to say yes when every fiber of your being screams no. And the reward for this obedience, you become easier to manage. Teachers, like you, parents praise you, peers don't feel threatened. But what happens when you carry this into adulthood? You become the employee who is always reliable, always overlooked for promotion, the friend who is always available, yet never admired, the lover who gives everything, only to be taken for granted. Do you see the hidden cruelty? Society tells you that, if you are good, you will be respected, but Machiavelli, Jung, Nietzsche, they all reveal the same truth. Goodness without power is invisible. Arthur Schopenhauer went even further. He argued that human behavior is rarely guided by rationality or morality, but by raw will and self-interest. People respect what interrupts their will, what they cannot bend or consume. In other words, they respect boundaries, sharp, unmovable edges. Without them, you are not a presence, but a convenience. And here lies the problem. You have been conditioned to avoid embodying those edges. You think if you say no, people will dislike you. You think if you show your strength, they will reject you. But the reality is inverted. The more you soften yourself, the less anyone sees you at all. Look around. The quiet worker is ignored, while the assertive one is promoted. The selfless friend is abandoned, while the self-possessed one is admired. The kind partner is taken for granted, while the confident one is desired. This is not cynicism, it is psychology. In evolutionary terms, humans are wired to seek safety under strength. The tribal leader was not the kindest man at the fire. He was the one who could fight, who could protect, who could not be as manipulated. Respect was survival. And remnants of this still shape us. Aldous Huxley once observed, the deepest sin against the human mind is to believe things without evidence. The evidence here is everywhere respect follows strength, and yet, most continue believing the opposite. They double down on kindness, on obedience, on love-seeking, wondering why their respect withers. It's not that kindness is useless. Love is beautiful, necessary even. But love without boundaries breeds contempt. Compassion without strength invites exploitation. And vulnerability without power is not admired, it is preyed upon. The hidden problem then is this. You confuse being loved with being respected, not realizing that love without respect is hollow, fleeting, dangerous, and so you become trapped in an endless cycle seeking validation, lowering yourself, erasing your own boundaries while secretly resenting those who treat you as lesser. Do you see the paradox? You crave their respect, but you unknowingly train them to deny it to you. You want to be untouchable, yet you make yourself the most easily touched, the most easily used. The roots of this problem run deep into psychology, philosophy, and history. But if the problem is clear, the consequences are darker still. Because once you begin to live without respect, once you allow yourself to be touched, bent, consumed, something begins to die inside you. And that is where we must go next, into the unseen consequences that quietly poison your life, the invisible chains that keep you from becoming untouchable. It begins subtly. At first you hardly notice it. You tell yourself you are being kind, patient, flexible, but day by day, piece by piece, the respect others have for you erodes not with explosions, but with whispers. The colleague interrupts you during meetings and you laugh it off. The friend cancels on you repeatedly, and you forgive them without hesitation. The partner raises their voice at you, and you swallow your hurt, telling yourself not to start an argument. Each act seems small, harmless, even virtuous. Yet slowly, invisibly, something corrosive spreads. Others learn that you can be touched, bent, ignored without consequence. And what does psychology tell us about such patterns? Cognitive dissonance ensures that once someone treats you as lesser, they justify it to themselves. If I can disrespect this person and they allow it, perhaps they are not worth respecting. The human mind is not built to see generosity as power, it is built to equate power with resistance. Without it, generosity becomes servitude. This is the first unseen consequence, the erosion of your identity in the eyes of others. You are no longer seen as an equal presence in the room. You are no longer perceived as someone to be reckoned with. You become, instead, a utility, a role, not a person. The dependable worker, the accommodating friend, the endlessly forgiving partner. Useful, yes. Valued, perhaps, but respected? No. Nietzsche called this the danger of herd morality. When you live for the approval of the herd, you diminish your individuality. You dissolve your sharp edges until you are merely another interchangeable member. The herd rewards your compliance with temporary belonging but robs you of the awe that only strength commands. And what happens to the one who is never respected? Over time they begin to lose respect for themselves. This is the second unseen consequence. So, your reflection in the mirror becomes blurry. You tell yourself, I am kind, I am giving, I am good, yet deep down, you feel hollow, because part of you knows the truth. You are not living as you could. You are not feared, not admired, not even fully loved. You are tolerated, and tolerance is the deathbed of respect. Carl Jung would say this is the shadow knocking at your door, the part of you that wants to roar, to demand, to command, to be untouchably it, has been locked away because you were taught it was bad. But the shadow does not vanish when you repress it. It festers. It shows up as quiet resentment, unexplained bitterness, sudden bursts of anger that shock even you. Have you felt it? That silent rage when someone dismisses you again. That burning desire to finally say, enough. This is the shadow trying to save you, trying to claw back the respect you abandoned. But because you've repressed it so long, it explodes chaotically instead of commanding authority. The third consequence reveals itself not just within you, but in society. Respect is not merely a private matter, it shapes hierarchies, power dynamics, and destinies. In workplaces, those who lack boundaries become the invisible gears that turn the machine, while those who command forever, if less competent, rise to the top. History is littered with mediocre leaders who commanded fear and brilliant minds who died unrecognized because they lacked it. Why does this happen? Neurology offers a clue. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, responds more urgently to threat than to comfort. We are wired to notice danger before kindness, strength before generosity. Respect, then, is often triggered by what unsettles us, not by what soothes us. And so here is the cruel paradox Machiavelli saw. People respect those they fear disappointing, more than those they fear hurting. Do you feel the weight of that? To be loved but disrespected is to be slowly destroyed. To be respected, even feared, is to endure. But there is a darker consequence still, the fourth, and perhaps the most devastating. You become complicit in your own invisibility. Every time you allow someone to disrespect you, you reinforce the cycle. Every time you silence your voice, you teach others that you do not need to be heard. Every time you accept crumbs, you tell the world you do not deserve the feast. And over time, you believe it. You become the enforcer of your own smallness. Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote that life oscillates between pain and boredom. For the one without respect, life becomes both. Pain in the form of mistreatment, boredom in the form of never being challenged, never being tested, never being forced to rise into greatness. And what about society at large? The collective consequence of respectlessness is a culture of mediocrity. The masses learn to worship those who project strength even if hollow and ignore those who genuinely serve. It is why demagogues rise, why tyrants inspire awe while saints are forgotten. Why you know the names of conquerors but not the countless, kind souls who built the world quietly in their shadow. So the unseen consequences are not just personal, they are civilizational. They dictate who writes history, who commands armies, who shapes nations. Respect or the lack of it determines the fate of worlds. And yet, here you are, living your daily life, letting small disrespects pass, hoping your kindness will someday pay off, believing that love alone can sustain you. All the while the silent consequences spread. your identity fades, your shadow grows restless, your self-respect erodes, and society itself continues to reward the ruthless. Can you feel it, now the urgency? This is not a minor inconvenience. This is the architecture of your destiny. If you remain touchable, bendable, forgettable, forfeit the only thing that makes you real in the eyes of others. But if you become untouchable, if you dare to embrace Machiavelli's dark rule, you may finally command the respect that cannot be stolen. The question is no longer whether the problem exists. You have seen its roots. You have felt its consequences. You've felt the sting of disrespect. You've seen the corrosion it leaves behind, the way it hollows out your sense of self. And perhaps by now, you're wondering, is there truly a way out of this cycle, or are we all doomed to bend under the weight of others' expectations? Forever touchable, forever vulnerable. Here's the truth, there is a way out, but it is not gentle, it is not polite, it is not the path you were raised to believe in. To become untouchable, you must rebel against everything you were taught about being good. Let's begin here. You were conditioned to equate goodness with self-sacrifice. From childhood, you were told to share, to give in, to be nice. These lessons were meant to civilize you, but they also disarmed you. They taught you that strength was arrogance, that saying no was selfish, that demanding respect was prideful. And so you built yourself into a person who avoided conflict at all costs. You trained yourself to smooth the edges, to accommodate, to tolerate. What you didn't realize is that every act of submission made you softer clay in the hands of others. The rebellion begins when you finally reverse this conditioning. Nietzsche called this the transvaluation of values, the act of flipping the moral code you were given and forging your own. Instead of worshipping meekness, you begin to honor strength. Instead of fearing pride, you begin to cultivate dignity. Instead of shaming power, you begin to wield it. But how, practically, does one do this? The first step is ruthless boundary set. Imagine this. A colleague interrupts you in a meeting. Instead of laughing it off, you place your hand on the table, look them in the eye, and calmly say, "Let me finish." Your voice is steady, your tone even, but your refusal to yield carries weight. You've just sent a shockwave. You've declared, "I will not be touched." Boundaries are not walls, they are signals. They tell others, "Here is where I end," and you begin. Cross this line, and you will feel resistance. And paradoxically, once people know your boundaries, they often test you less, because they sense the steel beneath your skin. The second step is to embrace selective fear. Machiavelli never argued that one must be cruel for cruelty's sake. Rather, he insisted that strategic fear commands stability. Ask yourself, do people fear disappointing you? Do they hesitate before disrespecting you? If not, you are still touchable. You don't need to roar, to rage, to dominate. Often, a single act of decisive strength changes everything. The parent who lets their child cry through one tantrum suddenly commands obedience. The leader who fires one disrespectful employee suddenly gains loyalty from the rest. Respect is not earned through endless patience, it is solidified through rare but unforgettable moments of firmness. The third step is the integration of the shadow. Carl Jung warned that the parts of yourself you repress will eventually control you unconsciously. The shadow holds your aggression, your anger, your hunger for dominance, the traits you were taught to suppress. But these traits are not evil, they are tools. To disown them is to disarm yourself. The rebellion means calling your shadow back to the table. Look at it, acknowledge it, whisper to it, "I see you. I will not let you control me, but I will not ignore you either." Then learn to channel it consciously. Your anger becomes assertiveness. Your pride becomes dignity. Your hunger for control becomes leadership. Without the shadow, you are incomplete. With it, you are untouchable. The fourth step is radical self-respect. Think of the way you speak to yourself. Every time you tolerate your own excuses, you weaken your spine. Every time you berate yourself for mistakes, you train yourself to accept humiliation. What if instead, you treated yourself as a sovereign one whose time, energy, and presence were sacred? You would wake earlier, speak clearer, walk taller. You would refuse relationships that drain you, conversations that belittle you, jobs that suffocate you. You would no longer wait for others to grant you dignity. You would radiate it, and in doing so, compel them to acknowledge it. The rebellion, in its essence, is this. Stop asking for respect. Start embodying it. But make no mistake, this path is not without cost. To rebel is to lose people. Friends who loved your compliance will fall away. Colleagues who thrived on your silence will bristle at your voice. Even family members may accuse you of becoming cold, arrogant, or distant. And here lies the final step, embracing solitude. To be untouchable, you must first be able to stand alone. The herd cannot follow you here. Respect has a price, and often that price is belonging. But think of this. Is belonging to those who do not respect you truly belonging, or is it slavery? The great leaders, the unshakable spirits, the untouchable ones, all of them walked through loneliness. Marcus Aurelius, writing his meditations in the dead of night, reminding himself to be a rock against the crashing tide. Nietzsche wandering the Alps, rejected and isolated, yet crafting insights that would outlive nations. Even Machiavelli, himself, exiled and disgraced, still sharpening his dark wisdom in secret. They were alone but untouchable, and so must you be if you wish to claim this rule. The rebellion is not a single act. It is a reconfiguration of your very being. To stop being clay in the hands of others. To become stone. To command, without begging, to radiate respect, even when standing in solitude. You are no longer at the mercy of the herd. You are the one who determines your value. You are the one who decides what is acceptable. You are the one who makes yourself untouchable. But here lies the deepest question still. Even if you master these steps, even if you rebel, set boundaries, embody your shadow, radiate dignity, what is the ultimate purpose? Why does being untouchable matter at all? To answer that, we must dig even deeper, into the final layer of Machiavelli's dark wisdom. Imagine standing at the center of a crowded marketplace. People swirl around you, faces, demands, judgments. Every eye measures you. Every whisper reshapes you. And yet, you feel nothing. Their approval no longer intoxicates you. Their scorn no longer wounds you. Their chaos no longer shakes you. Why? Because you've stepped into the rarest, most powerful state a human being can reach, untouchability. Here lies Machiavelli's final, most dangerous truth. Respect is not something you gain from others. It is something you command from within, and once commanded, no one can strip it from you. The illusion of life is that power lies outside of you in titles, money, recognition, the applause of the crowd. This illusion enslaves nearly everyone. They chase it desperately, and in chasing, they reveal their weakness. The untouchable ones are those who invert the game. They stop chasing, they stop begging, they stop depending on anything outside of themselves, and in doing so, they terrify the world. Think of it. The employee who cannot be bribed with promotions is untouchable. The friend who does not bend to peer pressure is untouchable. The leader who does not fear being hated is untouchable. This is the paradox. The less you need from others, the more power you wield over them. Machiavelli hinted at this in The Prince. He wrote that fortune is like a river, wild and destructive, flooding lands without mercy. The weak scramble to appease it, to hope for its kindness, but the strong build dams, redirecting its force. They do not beg fortune to spare them, they bend fortune to their will. The untouchable individual does the same with society. Instead of worshipping approval, they redirect it. Instead of being shaped by respect, they become the shaper of what respect even means. But here's the deeper layer, the one that pushes this insight into the realm of philosophy. To become untouchable is not merely to wield power, it is to transcend the game of power itself. Carl Jung once warned, the man who looks outside dreams, the man who looks inside awakens. When you stop looking outside for respect, you awaken. You realize that the insults, the praises, the gossip, they are shadows on the cave wall, echoes of other people's fears and desires. They are not about you, they never were. And suddenly, the world flips. You stop asking, do they respect me? And start asking, do I respect myself? Here lies the true rule of untouchability. You cannot be disrespected by anyone if you have already secured the respect of the only judge who matters. Think about how liberating this is. Every slight that used to sting now falls flat. Every insult becomes meaningless noise. Every manipulation attempt bounces off like arrows against armor. Because respect no longer lives in their hands, lives in yours. But let's not romanticize too quickly. This realization is not gentle, it is dark. Because once you stop needing respect from others, you also lose the comfort of belonging. The herd bonds over shared illusions. They crave validation from each other, and in that craving, they feel connected. When you step out, you break the bond. You are no longer one of them. You are sovereign, and sovereignty is lonely. Nietzsche warned that greatness is inseparable from solitude. The higher the peak you climb, the fewer who can follow. To be untouchable is to stand above the crowd. Yes, but also to stand alone in the winds of your own mountain. Can you bear that? If you can, then the rewards are infinite. Freedom so vast it feels like fire in your veins. Clarity so sharp it cuts through every illusion. Power so quiet it does not need to announce itself. This is why people fear and respect the untouchable ones. They cannot be bargained with. They cannot be manipulated. They cannot be dethroned, because their throne is not built on others' approval, but on their own unshakable sovereignty. This is the essence of Machiavelli's dark rule. Respect commanded from within makes you immune to disrespect from without. Let's bring this home. You will be tested. You will be challenged. You will be tempted to collapse back into the herd. People will call you arrogant, cold, unfeeling. But remember, they only say this because your independence exposes their dependence. Your untouchability reveals their fragility. And if you hold steady, if you resist the pull, if you continue to build your life not on their respect, but on your own, you will reach a point where no insult can pierce you, no rejection can break you, no betrayal can touch you. You will be untouchable. And from that state you do not merely survive, you command. Not with cruelty, not with begging, but with a presence that demands respect without asking. That is the final paradox. To be untouchable is not to harden and to stone, it is to become free as air. Nothing binds you, nothing weighs you, nothing diminishes you. You exist on your own terms, and therefore you are respected not because you ask for it, but because you no longer need it. So I leave you with this question. One Machiavelli might have whispered in your ear, if today you were stripped of every title, every follower, every compliment, would you still respect yourself? If the answer is yes, you are already untouchable. If the answer is no, the path awaits you. The rebellion begins within. The rule is simple. The cost is heavy. The reward is everything.